What is going on, everyone? It's your boy Danny GG, and today we're going to be taking a closer look at the VK78 Commando. This weapon has been given a lot of screen time in the small snippets of Halo Infinite gameplay we've seen, but I think its place in the Halo sandbox is really interesting and poses some intriguing questions for other fan favorite weapons. Joining me today is my friend and fellow epic Halo gamer, Jarasunder. We've recorded a short podcast-style conversation for you all, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Alright, Mr. Jarasunder, so I was scrubbing through every frame of every piece of multiplayer gameplay that we've gotten so far, and I have yet to see the DMR anywhere, which is really interesting because it was obviously the go-to gun in Halo Reach, and then made a return pretty significantly in Halo 4 and 5. So this would be potentially the fourth game with the DMR, but nowhere to be found, and a huge emphasis on the new VK78 Commando. So do you think that the Commando is potentially replacing the DMR, or maybe not replacing, but since the battle rifle might kind of replace the DMR, the Commando is kind of that new cousin weapon to the battle rifle?
Honestly, I don't think it's replacing it. I don't think there's room for the DMR in the sandbox anymore. I think that what 343 is trying to do with the multiplayer this time around is I think they are actually trying to create like a new gameplay meta. Whereas, I mean, it's still going to revolve around the BR to a pretty large extent. I think their design, and I think this goes back to that whole thing with people being upset about the sidekick and whatnot. We're like, oh, well, why doesn't it look like the legacy pistol? I don't understand. Well, if a gun doesn't function the same as a previous iteration, does it really make sense for it to look the same, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it's filling a completely different corner of the meta or a completely different gameplay style, then it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for it to be the same. So I think it's possible that we could see the DMR. I think maybe there's toys with the DMR. Not that that's the greatest indication in the world, but I think it's possible. But I think it just doesn't have as much room in the meta anymore as it used to.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. And something that kind of, I guess, ignited this topic in my brain was when I was looking through the multiplayer gameplay, the Commando has a 3 times zoom on its scope, which usually the BR has a 2 times. So 3 times, I was like, that's kind of, a little bit more zoomed in for a fully automatic weapon. And I mean, in the clips, this thing was shredding people from like BR distance at least. So kind of interesting that maybe, like you said, the DMR doesn't really fit in the sandbox anymore, but if they're doing kind of a long range auto rifle like this, that's, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, like you said, they're changing the meta.
Yeah, well, it's also weird because it's totally just a carbine. Like, in everything I can see, it's totally just a carbine. I think what they're doing, and I think the reason why we have the pulse carbine, is because I think they realize that the carbine does actually fit really well and lend itself really well to the sandbox. And it's a really fun weapon to use. There's a lot of, and I think the reason why it exists as a human weapon is because when something is a Covenant weapon, I don't know what it is, people just don't want to use it. They just don't want to use it if it's a Covenant weapon. It's got to be that familiar human weapon.
Huh. That's interesting. I haven't thought of that. Maybe if they're gonna like market it as like a starting kind of weapon or like something like that, that's more of a utility weapon, they don't want to have that as a Covenant weapon because it's your Spartan's journey and all that, shit that. But yeah, so we've definitely seen that they're doing a heavy reliance on legacy features. The BR is back, the old armor, the art style, everything. So maybe I think if the DMR doesn't show up, it could just be competing with the battle rifle and like kind of stealing some of the spotlight, because honestly, I like Halo 5, the battle rifle sucked. Like Magnum beat BR every time, and then DMR beat both of them every time, basically. So I don't know. Maybe they're just like, here's the BR, DMR, maybe it'll come later, probably not. But with the Commando now, I'm really feeling like the DMR is gone.
Yeah, it's definitely different. It's very strange to think about the fact that we might be playing a Halo game that doesn't either prominently feature the DMR or just doesn't feature it at all. I don't know. I feel like their plan is to like put everything into the game. I think it's gonna end up being a Fortnite situation where
They just keep
like
adding stuff.
yeah, where they add and they put they what's the word? They vault stuff and things like that. Yeah, I could easily see them doing stuff like that. Something else I wanted to point out is, I don't know if you noticed in the multiplayer kind of VDoc that they showed. I'm trying to remember what the name of the gun is. The shotgun, the Bulldog, that's what it's called. That's completely different than what it was before. And they said that they wanted it to, be a different weapon in the meta for Halo, which again, it kind of proves the point that they're trying to make this be an evolution of the multiplayer as opposed to an iteration. The difference between Halo 3 and Halo Reach was substantial. Between 1 and 2 was substantial. I think we're looking at like a 1 to 2 situation, whereas the gap between them this time is 5 and Infinite. So I think that the reason why the Bulldog is a different gun is because it's actually like, okay, so let's put things on a tier, okay? There's a tier list of weapons and how useful they are and how much you want to get them. 1 is going to be your assault rifle, your pistol, your basic weapons that are relatively inaccurate, kind of spammy. I think that the VK is going to fall onto that list. I think that the assault rifle is going to fall onto that list. And I think that the Bulldog is going to fall onto that list. And then the tier 2 would be stuff like the BR, something like a DMR, or something a little bit more precise. Maybe some of those power weapons that are a little bit better in weirder situations. And then level 3 is just straight up power weapons, rocket launcher, sniper rifle, etc., etc. I think that tier 1 list of kind of first grab weapons, like immediately you throw them off the wall, or you pull them off the wall and stuff like that. I think that's what they're trying to do with the Bulldog, is create a shotgun that's something that you start in the sort of in the spawn area and get out the gate and use for different situations, as opposed to the shotgun being this big powerful corner camping weapon.
Yeah, I could see that with the Bulldog for sure. Definitely seems kind of like a cleanup weapon, like you're spraying with the assault rifle, I broke his shield, switch, and then bop bop, Bulldog, he's dead. But with the Commando specifically, I would predict that would be more of like a tier 2 weapon, like it. From the footage we've seen, and who knows how the game will be rebalanced or whatever, but that thing was totally shredding people. Like, I don't know. So it feels like more in line with a Saw from like Halo 4 and 5 than like a slightly better assault rifle. But we'll have to really see when the game comes out and when we get your hands on it. Hopefully on these flights any day now, maybe. So I'm really curious to know what you all think about the new VK78 Commando and where it's going to fit into Halo Infinite's weapon sandbox. Do you think it's going to replace the DMR? Is it going to be a competitor for the battle rifle, or more like a SAW that we've seen in Halo 4 and 5? So make sure to leave a comment below, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, and if you really want to support me that little bit extra, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content leading up to the release of Halo Infinite and beyond. Appreciate you guys. See you in the next one. Peace.